Lewis Dodson first appeared as the background antagonist in Michael Crichton's original Jurassic Park. He was adapted by Spielberg for the film version just 3 years later and had a role that played out nearly identical to that of what went down in the first book. The second novel, however, was far different, and fair warning, I'll be adapting its foul language. Here, Lou Dodson was elevated to the role of primary antagonist, and he served as the central villain who works to smuggle dinosaur eggs off of Site B in the events of The Lost World. His character was expanded upon greatly in the sequel, with a devious past of backstabbing being well known amongst his fellow Biosyn peers. Two of his peers, Howard King, a biologist, and George Baselton, a paleontologist, accompany the threatening man on his journey to the island. They've prepared themselves for dinosaur encounters by bringing a small sonic device that emits a very strong frequency, which dinosaurs find excruciatingly painful. Having already tested and used the device on a Maiasaur family, the group begins to make their way to their second egg-thieving stop, the Rex Nest. Dodson sat with King and George in the Jeep. They could hear the low rumbling of something incredibly large, and then a loud thud vibrated its way towards them. The animal was walking. A 20-foot shadow moved past them. 2 legs, large body, short head. A tyrannosaur. Dodson grabbed hold of the sonic box before saying, "Let's get this over with." "Charged?" he asked King, who quickly responded with a resounding yes on the battery pack. "Okay," Dodson said, "exactly the same as before. I'll go first, and you two bring the eggs back to the car." King was staring out of the window. "What kind of dinosaur is that?" he asked. "A tyrannosaur," Dodson said. "A tyrannosaurus?" asked Baselton. "It doesn't matter what it is," Dodson quickly said. "We know it works. Just follow the plan." "Wait a minute," King said. "I don't see why we're rushing into this." Baselton tried to calm King down by telling him of a recent study on tyrannosaur brain cases. John Roxton had theorized that the Rex's visual acuity should be similar to that of a frog. "He'll lose you if you don't move." "You heard what George said. It's just a big frog." "Let's go," said the leader. Dodson raced to the nest. He was ready, holding the emitter like a gun. King trailed behind, looking horrified. Baselton walked beside him in an effort to calm him down. Dodson quickly signaled them to catch up. Then, as soon as they entered the clearing, they saw the tyrannosaur. No, they saw 2. The animals looked at the men perplexed, giving them a dumb stare, as if amazed to see an intruder. Just before... Dodson pointed the box at the animals and turned the dial. A high-pitched shriek filled the air. The Rexes roared in response. "Oh fuck," said King. They began to move toward them. Dodson twisted the dial further, and Baselton clapped his hands over his ears. The response was immediate. The Rexes began to back up, as if they'd received a physical blow. They tried to roar again, weakly now, without conviction. Deep from the mound, King heard the tiny cries of the babies shrieking in pain. Dodson moved forward, and the tyrannosaurs began to shake their heads back and forth, trying to clear their ears. He slowly twisted the dial even further, making them back off while he climbed into the nest. Baselton and King soon followed, seeing 2 little babies and a small clutch of eggs. The tyrannosaurs were far away now, stomping in agitation. Dodson screamed over the noise for King to grab one of the eggs. King fumbled about the nest before snagging one of them, but in the process of his bumbling, he accidentally stepped on one of the baby's legs, breaking it. The infant let out a painful cry, which caused the parents to attempt to step forward and save their young. King ran out of the nest and for the Jeep. Now, Dodson told Baselton to grab an egg, but the man stood there, terrified, knowing that the Rexes would surely not let another man enter their nest so easily. "George, now!" Dodson commanded. "I can't!" he screamed. "You dumb fuck!" cried Dodson. Now, he himself began to enter the nest, all while holding the emitter high. But as he started down, he twisted his body, and the battery plug pulled out of the box. The sound abruptly stopped. The tyrannosaurs shook their heads and roared. The 2 men froze. The Rexes began to walk toward them. All Dodson could think of was some sort of plan to plug the battery pack back in, but he dare not move. The male Rex observed its hurt infant before turning its head in Baselton's direction. It stared blankly at the man in the mound. He really can't see him, Dodson thought, just before the creature nudged the paleontologist with its snout and moved its head back to strike the man laterally to the ground. "You son of a bitch!" Baselton screamed, just as the Rex lowered its jaws towards George's body. The movement was delicate, yet came accompanied with a high-pitched scream. When it lifted its head, Dodson noticed the Rex had a dangling bit of flesh within its mouth. It was Baselton's arm. The man's scream was never-ending, and it echoed across the primal forest around them. He ran. Dodson sprinted for the Jeep, jumped in the car, and started the engine. The tyrannosaurs roared behind him, clutching the egg in the passenger seat. King asked, "Where's Baselton?" "Didn't make it," Dodson replied. What do you mean, King said. I mean he didn't fucking make it, Dodson yelled, slamming the car into gear. The Jeep raced off. Maybe we should get rid of this, King said. Don't you fucking dare, screamed his employer. Suddenly, one of the Tyrannosaurs burst through the trees ahead of them. Dodson quickly shifted the car in reverse. You're going to get us killed, screamed King. Shut the fuck up, Dodson shouted. He was worried but needed to stay cool. He was in control here. But this was dangerous, and the situation had already escalated quickly. They were in a fucking Jeep with a fucking cloth top, and they were going to... Suddenly, the female Tyrannosaur darted towards them from behind. Both Rexes had cut them off. Dodson spun the wheel and threw the car over the edge of a nearby cliff. Its tires spun with no traction. They were suspended in the air, with horrifying roars coming down on them. Dodson flung open the door and jumped. He felt a sharp pain in his forehead, saw stars, and blacked out. Needless to say, this scene was never adapted in the Jurassic Park film series. For those that haven't read the second book, they may find it hard to believe that Dodson was such a vicious individual. While we only saw him briefly in the first JP movie, make no mistake, that dude is one terrible person. Again, this is a piece of Jurassic Park history that has really only made its way into the expanded series through artist depictions, like what I've used in the thumbnail. That image actually comes from a jigsaw puzzle made to promote the film version of The Lost World Jurassic Park. Maybe someday it'll get its due on the big screen. Let me know what you guys think of this scene in the comments down below. Did you enjoy it, and would you like to see it adapted? Or do you think it may be just a bridge too far? Very interested to hear what you all have to say. Now, before I go, I want to thank my game wardens, as well as all of my InGen executives, like Ben Wilder. I'd also like to thank my park workers and InGen hunters as well. Richard Ramirez, words can't really express how awesome it is to have you guys tell me how much you enjoy the stuff I do, and I seriously am eternally grateful for every ounce of support that you've shown me. It honestly does mean the world. Now, I'd like to thank you all for watching this video, and hope that you all enjoyed today's content. If you feel like I deserve it, I'd appreciate the like and hope that you'll consider subscribing if you're interested in hearing from me again. I'll see you all in the next video, guys. And as always, take it easy.